In China, the beauty of West Lake, the tide of Qiantang River, the zen of Lingyan Temple, and the prosperity of the Grand Canal. How many shining labels do it take to make a city called heaven on earth? This is Hangzhou. Half a city is full of gold and jade, half a city is full of breeze and bright moon. But heaven is not born. Perhaps few people know that the original Hangzhou was neither the most outstanding city in China's innate environment, nor the focus of policy tilt most of the time, but it was this gentle Jiangnan city that experienced twists and turns in 5,000 years and reversed itself 3 times. Destiny, it eventually became a city of wealth and beauty, a heaven on earth with 500 miles of mountains and rivers and 5,000 years of civilization. So, what exactly has Hangzhou experienced? How did he do it? In the next video, we will try to answer this question. First of all, we should start with the pioneering work 5,000 years ago. But it wasn't heaven at all at that time. In fact, Hangzhou, located between mountains and seas, is not a flat river. Its western part is lined with mountains. 4 main mountain ranges stretch from southwest to northeast, and the highest peak can reach more than 1,700 meters. This height difference is enough to create different environments and species in the vertical direction, and it can also be a natural barrier to intercept water vapor. As the eastern part of Hangzhou is on the verge of the sea, the water vapor rushing from the sea is intercepted by the mountains, and a humid and rainy climate is created, thus forming a number of rivers such as Qiantang River and Dongshouxi River. The sea tide and rivers carry sediment and accumulate plains between mountains and seas, and the landscape pattern of 500 li in Hangzhou has established. At the same time, this land was destined to be tempered by floods and oceans. Until more than 5,000 years ago, a group of ancestors called Liangsu people settled here, and started the earliest infrastructure maniac creation on the land of China. They built more than a dozen dams at the foot of the mountain, forming the largest water conservancy system in the world at that time. The water storage capacity is equivalent to the 3 West Lakes today. It can not only store rain and flood, but also transfer water to irrigate rice fields. Between the dam and the Rik-E field is a water capital composed of the inner city and the outer city of the palace area, with an area equivalent to 9 Beijing Forbidden City. In the city, 51 rivers crisscross a water road network, and workers sail boats and shuttle back and forth. In addition, the people of Liangzhu also created a wide variety of jade to carry their beliefs. All this shows that as early as 5,000 years ago, the ancestors of Liangzhu took the lead in opening the door of civilization on behalf of China, shining in the ranks of ancient civilizations in the world. Unfortunately, severe climate change caused massive floods and sea clearing, which eventually flooded the homes of the ancestors until the sea receded and stable land was formed again. However, the Liangzhu culture, which was born here, has not been interrupted. They continue to spread to all parts of China, and finally integrate into the blood of China in 5000. Yes, the history of Hangzhou in 5000 is far longer than most people think. It is a city of the same age as the Chinese civilization. It also proves to the world that the history of Chinese civilization in 5000 is not a legend. However, the tempering of mountains and seas is doomed to survive in Hangzhou. People must change his fate in order to make this flooded land into the original appearance of heaven. One of the most famous creations is the West Lake. Yes, the West Lake is not a completely natural lake, but a water conservancy project. Its predecessor was a small bay on the banks of the Qiantang River. With the accumulation of sediment to form a natural dam, foreign families continued to build seals to block the tide of the Qiantang River. ND gradually became an independent lake. According to the law of natural evolution, it gradually silted up and completely disappeared, which is the fate of the West Lake. However, a group of the most prescient leaders in Hangzhou clearly realized the long-term value of West Lake. At that time, Hangzhou City was the hometown of rivers and seas, and the groundwater was salty and bitter, but the West Lake in the Tang and Song dynasties was already called fresh water by rainwater and streams in the mountains. In this way, it can not only serve as a source of drinking water, but also can store water for flood control, irrigate farmland, and communicate desire. Therefore, when lakes in many cities were reclaimed as farmland, Li Di, by Juai, Qianfusu and the officials and people of past dynasties in Hangzhou all vigorously managed to West Lake cleaned up silt with manpower, built dams and sluices, thus maintaining the lake surface, improving the water quality, and greatly improving the lives of Hangzhou people. In this way, a small lake that no one cares about has become a water conservancy project related to people's livelihood. The return of the reborn West Lake to Hangzhou people is far beyond the scope of water conservancy. Once the West Lake was so frequent that even Li Bai, a poet who visited Hangzhou several times, never mentioned him in a word. But in the northern Song dynasty, the Wei Street Lake had become a scenic spot deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. People chanted by joyous poems by the West Lake, tasted the scenery left by Su Shu, and sang the story that in stranger could slowly return. As for the West Lake in the southern Song dynasty, it has become the spiritual home of the literati. It is a famous poem written by the poet and the 10 scenes of the West Lake in the painter's heart. At this time, Hangzhou had become the capital of the southern Song dynasty, and people from all over the world with different eating habits moved here. At its peak, the population of the whole city exceeded 1 million, and Hangzhou, where talents gathered, led the South Song dynasty to achieve world-leading achievements in agriculture, handicraft industry, commerce, art, mathematics and other fields. Since then, the reputation of heaven on earth began to spread widely, and Hangzhou became the most elegant, open and prosperous city at that time. However, after all, there are too many family and country regrets in the prosperity of the Song dynasty. When the dynasty changes and the times change, where should the fate of this heaven on earth go, and can it usher in a new turning point again? In eastern China, the well-known Beijing-Hangzhou Grand Canal River runs through 5 major water systems one by one from north to south at the intersection of Hangzhou and Qiantang River. But in fact, as early as the 7th century after the Sui and Tang Grand Canal was opened, Hangzhou was already a hub connecting the north and the south, and the commodity economy took root again. Especially during the Ming and Qing dynasties, Hangzhou became one of the most densely populated areas in China. The pressure of less land prompted Hangzhou to make changes again. Therefore, from the plain to the mountains, people grow mulberry and cotton, hemp, bamboo and tea etc. It is from this time that the well-known Longjing tea has been declared far away. From cities to villages, people are good at making thread, soap powder, soap pens, simplicity and umbrellas. As long as they make wine and silk, they can produce almost everything here. In order to make the goods run efficiently, the dense and flexible municipal government has brought a huge city. All kinds of goods start from here, cross bridges, streets, and alleys, cross villages, merge into Qiantang River, merge into the Grand Canal, and then flow to the whole country, outlining an ancient Taobao website. When every household was infiltrated by the commodity economy, and the citizen culture continued to rise strongly, Huang Go and brewed the Fujian mountain residence map on the banks of the Fujian River, and Shunyan was determined to make Lu Zhishan die when the tide of the Qiantang River came. Lifeng Pagoda in Wuhan left behind a white lady who pursued love. The Wansong Academy in the mountains so NTS the sad and beautiful butterfly lovers. The landscape of Hangzhou has become a natural, open and accessible stage. The joys and sorrows of literati, rich and powerful merchants, and Chengdu Xiaomen can be injected into this landscape. Thus, heaven became a paradise for all living beings. Here, people love mountains and rivers, love dust, love beauty, and love to work hard. However, the fate of heaven still twists and turns. Since modern times, with the decline of the canal, Hangzhou has lost its hub advantage, and its status has declined greatly. He is waiting for a greater opportunity of the times. When this opportunity comes, the accumulation of 5,000 years will usher in an unprecedented outbreak. Every year in August of the lunar calendar, the turbulent Qiantang River tide will usher in the most spectacular moment. Under He action of tide causing force and topography, the sea water rushes into the bell mouth-shaped Hangzhou Bay, forming an amazing spectacle. Although such Qiantang River has a lot of shallow water and sand, it cannot meet the requirements of modern large freighters, and Hangzhou, which is located between mountains and seas, does not have much ocean advantages. However, Hangzhou, which has been washed away by the spring tide for 5,000 years, has already written the tide into the bones of Hangzhou people. After the reform and opening up, Hangzhou people who were infiltrated by the commodity economy soon realized the coming of the opportunity of the times. From China's most influential private multinational companies to China's largest clothing wholesale base to the well-known Shenton, Zongtong, Yiwantong, and Yunda, it has not only set off a wave of private economy, but also set off a wave of e-commerce and digital economy sweeping the country and even the world under the catalysis of the internet. Under the surging tide, Hangzhou's business environment and talent attraction have been in the forefront of the country for many years in a row, and it has successively held international events such as the G20 Hangzhou Summit and the 19th Hangzhou Asian Games, standing on the stage of competing for global urban competitiveness. But what is more valuable is that when Hangzhou goes to the world, it is still a model of Oriental landscape aesthetics. In 2002, Hangzhou West Lake became the country's first ticket-free 5A scenic spot and successfully applied for heritage in 2011, followed by the Grand Canal and the ancient city of Liangzhu. Hangzhou, with 3 world cultural heritages, is growing towards a modern version of the heaven on earth. Here, when we recall the original appearance of Hangzhou city, we have to sigh that heaven is not innate. Over the past 5,000 years, the city has experienced ups and downs, thoroughly remolded oneself on the land originally tempered by mountains and seas, and reversed its fate 3 times. Since then, the West Lake is its beauty, the Grand Canal is its wealth, and the rolling sea tide is its character. The earth and the masses have created the mountains, lakes and seas here, and these mountains, lakes and seas have made all living beings have a paradise. In the end, generations of Hangzhou people drew a picture of Hangzhou with the landscape in 500 and built a Hangzhou city in 5,000 years, and this is the real Hangzhou.